The old outpost floated silently in the far edge of space, where almost no ships ever passed anymore. It had once been a small research station, the kind that the Galactic Council built in large numbers during their booming years. But now, after decades of not being used, it was nothing more than a forgotten metal shell drifting around a dim, tired-looking star. Most people didn't even know it existed, and those who did never bothered to visit it. There was simply no reason to. It held no treasure, no valuable metal, and no working machines left to steal. That was exactly why a human salvager happened to land there on a quiet evening. His name was Evan, and he was the kind of person who explored places other people ignored. Evan never liked crowded spaceports or trading hubs. He preferred empty corners of the galaxy where there were no rules, no scanning drones checking his license, and no one telling him what to do. He collected scrap, repaired old tools, and sold whatever small things he found. Some days he found nothing at all, but the peace was worth it to him. He wasn't expecting much from this old station either. His scanner showed almost no energy readings, just weak, fading signals that could have been leftover noise. He planned to take a few metal panels, maybe check if any cables were still usable, and leave. The moment his ship touched the dusty landing pad, the place felt abandoned in a strange, heavy way. Not dangerous, just forgotten. The kind of forgotten that felt sad when Evan stepped inside. His boots echoed in the hollow hallway. Everything smelled like old air recyclers and cold metal. Dust floated gently in the beams of his flashlight. He muttered to himself, "Looks like no one's been here for years." He wasn't wrong. Parts of the station were dim, and parts were completely dark. Only a few tiny emergency lights glowed faintly along the walls. He moved slowly, shining his light across control panels, storage crates, and broken monitors. Almost everything looked useless. This wasn't going to be a profitable stop, but Evan didn't mind too much. At least he could explore, maybe find something unusual, maybe even something interesting. He walked deeper into the station, following the soft beeping of his handheld scanner. It picked up a weak signal somewhere ahead strange, but not enough to worry about. He assumed it was just old equipment, still sending out random readings. The closer he got, the more he noticed something strange. The air felt warm, as if a machine was running somewhere nearby. That didn't make sense, because the rest of the outpost was cold. He paused and looked around. What is still working in this place? He whispered. The scanner's signal grew stronger. Evan followed it around a corner, down another hallway, and toward a wide metal door. The door was slightly open, just enough for a person to squeeze through. This was unusual. Most doors in abandoned stations stayed locked because their systems failed years ago. Evan pushed the door carefully. It creaked loudly. Inside the room, the air felt different, thick, heavy, almost alive. He raised his flashlight, expecting to see a broken reactor, or maybe an old power core humming weakly. What he saw instead made his breath stop. In the center of the room, lying on the floor like a collapsed hill of gray and silver, was a massive creature. Its body was covered in thick, cracked skin that looked like stone, but moved slightly with each slow breath. The creature was huge, long limbs tucked under its weak frame, its chest rising and falling in a shaky rhythm. Its head rested against the metal floor, and its eyes were half open, glowing faintly like two fading stars. For a moment, Evan couldn't move. He had heard of alien creatures before. Of course, travelers talked about strange beings in far systems. But he had never seen anything like this. This one looked ancient, tired, and above all else, starving. Its ribs pressed sharply against its skin. Its breathing was shallow and uneven, as if every inhale cost it strength. There were empty nutrient containers scattered around the room, but not new ones, old, dried ones that had been left there long ago. It was clear nobody had cared for this creature in many years. Evan felt his heart sink. He didn't understand how a living creature could still be here, all alone in a forgotten outpost, barely clinging to life. He took a step forward, and the creature's eyes moved, slowly, with effort. They focused on him, confused and afraid. Evan raised both hands gently. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." He didn't know if the creature understood his words, but he spoke anyway, keeping his voice calm and steady. The creature let out a low, deep sound, not loud, not threatening, just a tired exhale that carried years of suffering. Evan looked around the room again. Whoever had been responsible for this creature had left it here. It wasn't an accident. The empty containers, the weakened body, the sealed room, it all suggested neglect. Painful neglect. Evan felt a lump in his throat. He wondered how long it had been lying here, waiting for anyone to come back. His mind raced. Should he leave? Should he report this? Should he help? His heart answered faster than his thoughts. He took another step forward. The creature weakly lifted its head, but it didn't have the strength to rise. Evan knelt a few feet away, careful not to startle it. He placed his scanner on the floor and slowly reached for his pack. He had a few survival nutrient bars, nothing special, but better than nothing. "Let's see," he murmured, unwrapping one. "Maybe this can help you a bit." The creature watched him closely. Its eyes followed the movement of his hand. Evan placed the nutrient bar on a small metal tray nearby, pushing it gently toward the creature with a tool handle so he didn't get too close too fast. The creature sniffed the air, then slowly extended a shaky limb. Its fingers, or what looked like fingers, were long and bony. It took the bar and examined it as if trying to remember how food worked. Then, with incredible slowness, it brought the bar to its mouth opened slightly. Its teeth looked worn, not sharp. It took a small bite, chewed, swallowed. Its eyes fluttered with something like relief. Evan felt his chest tighten. "So you really are starving," he whispered. He gave the creature another bar, then another. He didn't want to overwhelm it, so he offered them one at a time, letting it eat slowly, at its own pace. Every time it swallowed a bite, its breathing grew a little smoother. As the creature ate, Evan noticed a faint symbol on its skin, an old mark used by the Galactic Council. It looked like an identification tag, the kind they used for research species. But the symbol had been scratched, as if someone tried to remove it. The creature looked at him again. This time, its eyes seemed clearer. Not strong, but aware. Evan found himself speaking again, softly, almost like talking to a scared child. "How long have you been here? Who left you? Why?" The creature blinked slowly, as if trying to understand him. Evan stayed in the room for a long time, sitting quietly near the creature, letting it get used to him. He didn't make sudden movements. He didn't try to touch it. He just stayed there, offering warmth and presence, something the creature may not have felt in many years. Eventually, the creature let out a soft rumble, a sound that felt grateful. Evan took that as a sign he could stay a little longer. He looked at the creature with a mixture of sadness and determination. He didn't know what this being had gone through, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't walk away. Not from this. Not from a creature that had been abandoned to die alone. Evan didn't know the full story yet. He didn't know why the Galactic Council had left this ancient being here. He didn't know what dangers he might face by helping it. But in that moment, none of that mattered. All he saw was a living being that needed help, and he was the only one there to give it. Evan barely slept that night. Even after he left the creature's room and returned to his small ship to rest, his mind kept running in circles. He lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what he had seen. The picture of the huge, weak creature stayed in his head, The slow breathing, the cracked skin, the tired eyes that still held a spark of life. He had never seen anything so heartbreaking in all his travels. He kept replaying the moment when the creature took food from the tray, as if it had been waiting for someone to help it. It made him feel responsible, even though he didn't understand anything about the creature. Who abandoned it? Why? And how did it survive so long in that state? The more he thought about it, the more he realized something else. It was not by accident that the creature had been left behind. The empty room, a sealed door, the faded nutrient containers, it all looked too intentional. It didn't feel like a station that had been abandoned. It felt like something had been imprisoned. When Evan finally slept, it was a restless sleep. He woke up early, even before his alarm, with a heavy feeling in his chest. He knew he needed answers. He also knew the creature wouldn't survive long without more help. He grabbed his tools, loaded a few more nutrient packs into his bag, and headed back into the outpost. The hallway felt colder that morning. Maybe it was the temperature inside the abandoned station, or maybe it was his own nerves. He walked slowly, letting his boots echo softly on the metal floor. As he approached the creature's room, he heard the faint rumbling sound again, the slow, labored breathing of a tired life. When he entered, the creature looked up weakly. Its eyes were clearer than yesterday, but still filled with exhaustion. Evan crouched down a safe distance away and placed a container of water on the floor. He spoke softly, unsure if the creature understood, but he hoped the tone alone would help. "I brought some more food," he said. "And water, too. You need it." The creature moved slowly, lifting its heavy head just enough to look at the water. Evan watched as it carefully pulled the container closer and took small sips. It wasn't strong enough to drink fast, and every movement looked like an effort. Evan felt a tug in his heart. This creature had survived with nothing, not even kindness. While it drank, Evan looked around the room more carefully. Broken monitors hung from the walls. Wires were scattered everywhere. But one console, placed against the far end of the wall, still had a weak blinking light. It was barely functional, but it wasn't dead yet. Evan approached it slowly. The screen flickered when he touched it. Most of the controls no longer worked, but he managed to awaken part of the memory system. To his surprise, the machine still held a few encrypted files. He frowned. What were they doing here? He entered a few manual override commands, trying to break through the encryption. It took several minutes, but eventually the screen displayed a message. Project terminated by order of the Galactic Council. Evan's stomach tightened. He continued reading. All resources reassigned. Specimen nitrogen monoxide longer required. Nutrition supply discontinued. His throat went dry. He looked slowly toward the creature lying behind him. They left it here on purpose. They shut down the project. They cut off its food. They expected it to die. Evan stared at the message for a long time. The blinking light of the console reflected on his face. He felt a deep, uncomfortable heaviness forming inside him. The words were simple, cold, emotionless, but their meaning hit him like a weight he wasn't prepared for. This creature wasn't just forgotten. It was abandoned. He turned back to the creature. It watched him quietly, its eyes glimmering with something he couldn't fully understand. Pain? Confusion? Hope? Maybe all of those at once. "I'm sorry," Evan whispered. They left you here." The creature blinked very slowly, as if acknowledging his voice. Evan sat beside it on the floor, not too close, but close enough that the creature could see he wasn't afraid. He let the silence sit between them. There was something powerful about that silence, something emotional and unspoken. Evan felt it pressing in on him, making him want to do more, say more, help more. The more he looked at the creature, the more he realized it must have once been strong. Its body structure hinted at power and agility. The thick skin might have protected it from dangerous environments. Its eyes looked old, like they had seen countless years. This was not just any alien animal. It felt ancient, important, maybe even intelligent. Evan swallowed hard. "What were you to them?" he murmured. "Why would they treat you like this?" He looked again at the old council mark on its skin, the mark that had been scratched or burned away. It wasn't accidental. Someone had tried to remove it. "What did they do to you?" Evan whispered. The creature shifted slightly, letting out a soft, low sound. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't angry. It felt more like sadness. A tired, aching sadness. Evan felt something break inside him. It wasn't just sympathy, it was a kind of quiet anger. How could the highest authority in the galaxy treat a living being like this? Even if they didn't need it anymore, why leave it to die slowly? Why not release it somewhere safe? Why not give it a chance? He looked around the room again. Hidden beneath a layer of dust, he noticed a small data card lying near a broken shelf. He picked it up gently, wiped it on his sleeve, and slipped it into the console. The screen flickered again, loading new files. The first video file was corrupted, but parts of it played. He saw a group of scientists standing around a larger, stronger version of the creature. They wore white suits and held scanners. The creature in the video looked proud, powerful, almost majestic. It stood tall, much healthier than the one lying behind Evan now. He watched carefully. The scientists seemed excited, talking rapidly, but their voices were muted. Evan noticed the Galactic Council's insignia on their uniforms. The video cut to another clip showing data charts and performance tests. The creature passed every test with ease. Then the next clip shifted in tone. The scientists looked worried. Their body language changed. Something had happened, something the project leaders didn't expect. They talked aggressively, pointing at screens, arguing. The creature in the background looked calmer than them, almost confused. Suddenly, the video ended abruptly. The next file was a written report, council directive, program dissolved, funding terminated, specimen instructed to be disposed of quietly. No record of disposal required. Evan's jaw tensed. He felt heat rise in his chest. Disposed of quietly? He whispered. That's what they called this? He looked at the creature again. It had finished drinking and was watching him, eyes soft, curious. Evan walked slowly back to it and sat down cross-legged on the floor. The creature lowered its head a little, as if trying to understand him. "I don't know why they did this," Evan said gently. "But you didn't deserve it?" The creature blinked again, a slow, heavy blink that carried more emotion than any sound. Evan reached into his bag and took out a few tools. He began adjusting the oxygen filters in the room to make it easier for the creature to breathe. Even small improvements mattered. Every few minutes, he would check on the creature to make sure it wasn't afraid. But surprisingly, it remained calm. It was beginning to trust him. He felt that trust like a quiet warmth. It made him more determined than ever. After adjusting some systems, Evan sat beside the creature again. He spoke softly, telling it about his small life, how he traveled alone in space, how he repaired old things, how he never expected to find something like this. The creature listened. It didn't speak, but its eyes followed him carefully, as if trying to understand every word. Hours passed. Evan didn't leave. Not even once. He felt a sense of responsibility he couldn't explain. Helping the creature felt right, natural, almost necessary. And deep inside, a small voice whispered that this meeting wasn't an accident. Toward the end of the day, the creature made a sound soft, shaky, but meaningful. Evan looked at it with surprise. It wasn't a growl. It wasn't fear. It was a question. A soft, almost human-sounding question. Why? Evan froze. The word was quiet, but clear enough to understand. The creature wasn't just alive. It wasn't just intelligent. It was aware. Evan felt his heart pound in his chest. He leaned forward slightly, keeping his voice gentle. "I don't know why," he said softly, "but I promise I won't leave you." The creature's eyes closed slowly, as if relieved, and in that moment, Evan knew the truth. The council had abandoned this creature, but he WOUN never for the next few days. Evan returned to the room again and again, each time bringing small bits of food, water, and whatever simple supplies he had in his ship. He didn't completely understand what the creature needed, but he observed carefully. If the creature reacted well to something, he brought more of it. If it seemed uncomfortable, he changed his approach. He moved gently, spoke softly, and never forced anything. The creature was still very weak, but its eyes were no longer empty. They now followed Evan with more awareness, as if slowly remembering what it meant to trust another living being. Its breathing wasn't as rough as before. It still struggled, but at least it no longer sounded like every inhale was a battle. Even small improvements felt huge. Evan often sat near the creature without speaking. He understood that sometimes silence helped more than anything. It wasn't just about feeding the creature. It was about showing it that someone was finally there for it not to use it, not to study it, not to abandon it, just to help. On one particular visit, Evan noticed something new. When he entered the room, the creature lifted its head slightly. It didn't do it with fear this time. It did it in recognition, as if it knew he would come back. Evan couldn't stop the small smile that formed on his face. "Hey there," he said softly. "I brought a little extra today." He opened his pack and placed the supplies carefully on the metal floor near the creature, just close enough for it to reach without struggling. The creature shifted slightly, its long limbs trembling with effort. It was still learning to move again after such terrible weakness. As it reached for the food, Evan noticed something unusual. The creature paused, turned its head slowly, and looked at him straight in the eye for a few long seconds. There was something behind that look, something deeper, heavier. Evan felt it before he understood it. "Do you understand me?" he asked quietly. The creature didn't respond right away. Its eyes shimmered, reflecting the faint lights of the room. Its chest rose and fell slowly. Evan waited, not wanting to rush or pressure it. Then, in a voice so soft and cracked that it barely sounded like speech, the creature whispered a single word. "Why?" Evan froze. He wasn't sure he heard correctly at first. The word was quiet, shaky, almost broken. But it was definitely a word. A question. And it was speaking to him. The creature swallowed weakly and repeated the same word, slightly clearer this time. "Why?" Evan felt something shift inside him, like a mix of sadness and awe. He leaned forward just a little, keeping his movements calm. "Why? What?" he asked gently. The creature blinked with slow effort. It took a long moment to gather strength, and then it made the smallest gesture. Its long, thin limb pointed around the empty room. The word came again. "Why?" "Alone?" Evan's chest tightened. For the first time since he met it, he wasn't just looking at a creature. He was looking at someone who remembered being left behind. Someone who had felt the loneliness, the confusion, and the waiting. He took a quiet breath. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I really don't, but you don't have to be alone now." The creature made a soft, low sound, not of anger or fear, just exhaustion. Evan felt a weight settle on his heart. Whatever history this being had lived through, it carried pain far deeper than he had imagined. He moved a little closer, but still left enough space so the creature wouldn't feel trapped. "I promise I'm not here to harm you," he said. "I didn't even know someone was here. I came by accident. But now that I found you, I won't leave you." The creature lowered its head slightly, as if trying to understand his promise. For a while, neither of them spoke. Evan gave it time. He offered it food again, and the creature accepted it with slow, careful motions. Occasionally, it looked up at him again, as if checking to see if he was still real, still there, still helping Dot. Later that day, Evan decided to take a bigger risk. He reached out his hand a little closer than before. He wasn't trying to touch the creature. He just wanted it to see that his hand was open and empty. A peaceful gesture. The creature stared at his hand for a long moment. Its pupils shifted slightly, narrowing and widening slowly. It seemed to be thinking, remembering, comparing old memories with the present moment. And then, very slowly, it extended its limb. It didn't touch him fully, just brushed his fingertips lightly, like a leaf brushing against skin. But even that tiny touch mattered more than words. It was the beginning of trust. Evan held still, not even breathing too deeply. He didn't want to ruin the moment. The creature's skin felt cool and rough, like stone warmed by a faint glow underneath. After a second, the creature pulled its limb back gently. Evan smiled again, soft and genuine. "Thank you," he whispered. The creature blinked. It wasn't clear if it fully understood the meaning of the words, but something about the tone seemed to reach it. That night, Evan didn't sleep much. He sat inside his ship just outside the station, thinking about the creature. He wondered what kind of life it had before ending up here, what role it had served, who its people were, why the Galactic Council would leave a living being like this to starve. He had found some old files, earlier damaged documents, that mentioned something about discontinuation, but they didn't explain why. Evan felt a growing frustration. He wasn't someone who cared much about politics, but he did care about fairness. And nothing about this situation felt fair. The next morning, Evan returned with more supplies. When he entered the room, the creature was awake again. It lifted its head slightly when it heard his footsteps, and a soft sound escaped its throat, something like it breathing. Evan felt a warmth spread in his chest. "Good morning," he said. "I hope you're feeling a little stronger today." He set the food down and sat near it again. This time, the creature watched him with less fear and more curiosity. It slowly reached toward him, not for the food, but toward his direction. Not touching him, but acknowledging him. Evan felt honored in a strange way. This was a creature that probably hadn't trusted anyone in years. And now, it was trying. As the creature ate slowly, Evan noticed something else. Its breathing became slightly steadier, its posture less slumped, its eyes focused more clearly. "You're getting better," he murmured. "Not fast, but better." The creature looked at him again, and for the first time, it spoke more than one word. "You return." The words were rough and gravelly, but understandable. Evan nodded. "Of course I return. I said I wouldn't leave you." The creature lowered its head slightly, almost like a bow. "Many leave." Evan felt his throat tighten. "Well, I won't." The creature stared at him a moment longer, as if trying to decide whether to believe him. Then it made a soft, tired sound, one that felt like a mix of relief and disbelief. Evan stayed longer that day. He talked more, not expecting the creature to understand everything, but knowing that sometimes a warm voice could heal almost as much as food. He told the creature small stories about exploring the galaxy, about lonely nights in space, about the strange things he had seen in old junk ships. He didn't talk too fast. He kept his tone calm and gentle. The creature listened, really listened. Sometimes it made small sounds in response. Sometimes it shifted slightly, as if trying to get comfortable for the first time in ages. And sometimes it simply watched him with a kind of quiet wonder. Hours passed like minutes. Eventually, Evan stood up and stretched. "I'll be back later," he said softly. The creature's eyes widened just a little. "Return?" It asked again, this time with an uncertain tone. "Yes," Evan said with calm certainty. "I will return." The creature seemed to relax at those words. It slowly lowered its head back onto the metal floor, breathing softly. Evan walked to the door, took one last look, and whispered, "You're not alone anymore." When he stepped out, the creature made a soft sound behind him. Not a cry, not a call. Just a gentle sound that felt like gratitude. Part 3 ended with something simple, yet powerful. A bond. A gentle, fragile bond of trust that had finally begun to form between a lonely human and a forgotten, ancient being who had lost everything. Evan had brought the creature aboard his ship only a few hours earlier. But already the small space felt completely different. It no longer felt like a lonely salvager's cabin drifting through space. It felt like a place where something important was happening, something that neither he nor the creature fully understood yet. He had cleared the cargo area, pushed tools and spare parts to one side, and laid down soft insulation sheets so the creature wouldn't be lying directly on metal. For the first time in who knows how many years, the creature had a place that was actually meant for comfort. Its breathing was slow, but steadier than before. It lay curled on the padded surface, its long limbs tucked under like a tired old animal trying to rest. Whenever it opened its eyes, it looked around weakly, as if still trying to figure out where it was and who this strange human was who suddenly started caring for it. Evan moved quietly around the cabin, preparing things he thought might help. He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't a scientist. He didn't know anything about alien biology. But he did know how to repair machines, how to keep old systems running, how to improvise with whatever he had. Sometimes caring for a creature wasn't all that different. You worked gently. You didn't force anything. You observed, adjusted, and kept trying. He warmed up nutrient gels in a small heater, testing each batch with a scanner to make sure the temperature wasn't too high. He mixed in minerals he found on the outpost small glowing stones the creature had responded well to earlier. They dissolved almost instantly in the warm gel, releasing a soft, calm scent that seemed to soothe the creature the moment it breathed in. "There you go," Evan whispered, placing the mixture near the creature. "Smells better than anything I've had lately." The creature shifted slightly, lifting its heavy head. With a soft, strained movement, it reached for the bowl. Evan watched carefully, ready to help if needed, but the creature managed on its own. It ate slowly, almost thoughtfully, pausing between each mouthful as if savoring the warmth spreading through its body. Seeing that small spark of life returning made something warm rise in Evan's chest. He sat nearby, leaning back against the wall of the cabin, watching quietly. The creature's glowing eyes flicked toward him once, and Evan gave a gentle nod. Neither of them spoke, but something wordless passed between them, a trust that didn't need language. After eating, the creature rested again. Its breathing became smoother, deeper. Evan checked its skin markings, noticing that the dull gray patches now had faint traces of their original shimmer. Almost like the creature was remembering what being alive felt like. He sighed softly. "If you were part of some council project," he murmured, "why did they leave you out there? Why didn't anyone come back?" The creature didn't respond, but its eyes moved slightly, as if the question stirred an old memory. Evan stood up and stretched. His back hurt from hours of lifting, cleaning, and setting up space, but he didn't mind. Something inside him felt right. For the first time in a long time, he started checking the ship. The engines hummed quietly. The life support system worked harder than usual. Having a creature this size on board meant it had to adjust, but nothing seemed overloaded. Still, he would need to find a station soon. Not a council one, obviously, but an independent market where he could buy more food and supplies. He returned to the creature and lowered his voice. I need to help you heal more before we go anywhere. Don't worry. I won't leave you. The creature blinked slowly, as if acknowledging his words. After a while, Evan needed to adjust the lighting. Too bright could strain the creature. Too dim might make it anxious. He found a soft middle tone, warm and calm. When he dimmed the cabin lights slightly, the creature seemed to relax more, lowering its head and releasing a deep, steady breath that filled the room like a soft vibration. The sound wasn't scary. It was peaceful, almost like the creature was thanking him. Evan smiled. Yeah, you're welcome. Hours passed, but Evan didn't feel bored. There was something meaningful in simply watching over the creature as it recovered. Sometimes it would open its eyes, look at him with a quiet curiosity, then drift back to sleep. Other times it would shift slightly, as though testing its strength. When the creature finally tried to move one of its legs, Evan noticed immediately. It lifted the limb slowly, shakily, like someone who had been bedridden too long. He stood up quickly, but not in a way that would startle it. Easy, he said softly. The creature placed the limb down again, breathing a little heavier than before. Its eyes turned toward him, uncertain. Don't push too hard, Evan continued. You're healing, but it will take time. We've got nowhere to hurry anyway. The creature breathed out, as if agreeing. Evan sat back down, rubbing the back of his neck. He hadn't talked this much in days, but it felt natural. Even though the creature couldn't speak much, or maybe didn't understand human language fully, it listened. And that alone made the small ship feel less empty. At one point, while Evan was mixing more minerals into a gel, he felt a soft shift in the air. He turned his head and saw the creature watching him more intently than before. Its eyes no longer looked dull. There was a faint glow returning, a soft shimmering ring inside each pupil. He paused. What? Something wrong? The creature didn't move. It simply watched him, carefully, thoughtfully. Then, after a long moment, it lowered its head in a slow, respectful movement. Evan froze. He wasn't sure if he imagined it, but the gesture looked almost like acknowledgement, maybe even gratitude. He placed the bowl down and whispered, You don't have to thank me. I'm just doing what anyone should have done. But he knew the truth. Not everyone would have done this. Most soldiers would have seen the creature, called it too dangerous or too much trouble, and left. Some might have even reported it to the council, hoping for a reward. Evan felt a sense of quiet pride that he hadn't done that. Later, when the creature slept again, Evan gently placed a soft blanket across part of its body. Not to trap it, just to keep it warm. The creature shifted slightly, but didn't wake, relaxing into the warmth. He stepped back and whispered, You're going to be okay. The hours slowly turned into the deepest part of the ship's night cycle. Evan sat by the control panel, reading through the old council files he had found. They were cracked and incomplete, but one thing was clear. The creature had once been part of a guardian species. A species that protected planets. A species the council had decided was no longer useful. He felt anger build up quietly inside him. He looked back at the sleeping creature, its breathing calm and gentle. You deserved better, he said softly. A lot better. The creature shifted lightly, almost as if it had heard and understood. Evan moved closer, sitting on the floor next to it. He didn't touch it. He knew that would be too much right now. But he sat near enough that the creature would know he was there, that it wasn't alone. Minutes passed quietly, then nearly an hour. And then something unexpected happened. The creature opened its eyes, very slowly. It looked at him, its gaze soft, tired, but clearer than ever before. Its mouth moved slightly, making a faint sound. Not loud, not sharp, Just a soft whisper of air. Evan leaned in carefully. "What is it?" The creature struggled for a second, then managed a single word. A soft, cracked, breathy sound. "Why?" Evan's heart skipped. Not because the sound was frightening, because it wasn't. It was heartbreaking. The creature wasn't asking why he fed it. It was asking, why had it been left to die? Evan swallowed, feeling a tightening in his chest. "I don't know," he whispered. "But you're not alone anymore." The creature watched him, then lowered its head again, as if accepting his promise. Evan stayed awake beside it, making sure its breathing stayed steady, making sure it didn't struggle. He kept the room warm, checked the ship systems, and prepared more minerals for the next feeding cycle. He didn't think about sleep. He didn't think about time. All he thought about was making sure the creature had a chance to live. Hours later, as the ship drifted quietly through space, Evan realized something simple but powerful. Saving this creature wasn't just helping it. It was changing him too. He didn't know what the next hours or days would bring. He didn't know what dangers might be waiting. But he knew one thing clearly. He wasn't going to let anything happen to the creature again. Not now, not ever. The days that followed felt almost unreal for Evan. The creature was getting stronger little by little, and he could see the change every time he checked on it. Its breathing was steadier now, and the tired glow in its eyes had begun to brighten again. There was something peaceful about watching a being rise back from the edge of collapse. It reminded him of rescuing injured animals back on his home planet when he was younger. He had always been the kind of person who couldn't ignore someone who needed help, even if that someone looked nothing like him. But comfort never lasted long in a galaxy ruled by the Council. Evan had a feeling that something was going to happen soon. He didn't know why, but he kept sensing that time was running out. The creature sensed it too. Sometimes it would lift its head suddenly, as if hearing something far away. Other times it would stare at the door and make a soft, worried hum. Evan tried to reassure it. "It's okay. I'm here. You're safe with me." But he wasn't completely sure himself. He had uncovered too much already files that showed how the Council wanted this being erased quietly. He didn't know what the creature was accused of, or what it had done to upset them. But one thing was clear. The Council didn't want it alive. One morning, while Evan was checking the creature's readings with his scanner, the room suddenly dimmed. The soft hum of the station lights flickered for a second. Evan frowned. That only happened when something interfered with the station's old power grid. He went to the hallway and looked through a cracked window toward space. At first, everything looked normal, just the empty stretch of stars and the quiet glow of the distant sun. But then he saw it, a dot of light, then another, then several more dot ships. Not random ships, not traders, not travelers. These lights moved in a perfect formation. Council drones. Evan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He quietly stepped back into the room. The creature was already alert, its eyes fixed on him. It knew something was wrong. "We need to stay calm," Evan said, though his voice shook slightly. "They must have detected energy from the station. Or maybe they've been checking abandoned outposts lately." He didn't believe his own words, and the creature didn't either. Both of them knew this was no coincidence. Evan grabbed his small communicator and scanned the incoming objects. The readings were clear: surveillance drones and enforcement units. These machines didn't visit places for routine checks. They only came to finish something. They were here to clean up what the Council considered a loose end. The creature made a soft rumbling sound, uneasy, almost afraid. Evan went to it and placed a hand near its arm, not touching, but staying close. "I won't let them take you," he whispered. He didn't know how he was going to keep that promise, but he meant every word. The station shuddered as the drones docked. Their movements were always precise and cold. Evan heard metal clamping sounds echoing through the hallways. The power flickered again. He grabbed his small pack, took the creature's fabric cover, and whispered, "We have to move." The creature tried to stand. It was stronger than before, but still weak. It took effort for it to push itself up, and Evan supported its side gently. It wasn't easy to help something so large, but he didn't rush it. Step by slow step, they moved toward the back section of the station, where his ship was docked. As they walked, low mechanical sounds approached from the other direction. Drones were scanning every room, searching. Their bright white lights swept across the hallways, checking for life signs. Evan kept his breathing quiet and steady. The creature tried to do the same. They reached a small maintenance shaft that led closer to the dock. Evan opened the hatch. "It's a tight space," he whispered, "but it should keep us hidden for a while." The creature hesitated, then slowly lowered itself into the shaft. It fit, but barely. Evan slid in behind it, closing the hatch quietly. Inside the shaft, everything felt tight and silent. The metal walls were slightly warm, and the air smelled of old dust. Evan listened. The drone's movements were muffled now, but he could still hear their footsteps smooth, soft, and mechanical. He leaned close to the creature and whispered, "They're searching the main areas. If we stay still, they might not notice any unusual heat here." But the drones were more advanced than he expected. A sharp beeping sound echoed through the metal as one of them scanned the hallway outside. Evan held his breath. The creature did too. For a moment, it felt like time froze. And the beep faded, replaced by footsteps moving away. Evan exhaled quietly. "We can't wait long. They're getting closer to the dock. We have to reach the ship before they block it." The creature nodded slightly. Its eyes showed trust and fear. When the hallway outside grew quiet again, Evan slowly pushed open the hatch. He peered out carefully. No drones in sight. He motioned to the creature. "Come on." Together, they moved again, keeping low and close to the walls. Evan's heart was beating fast. He kept imagining a drone turning the corner at any second. They reached the docking area. Evan could see his ship, sitting quietly where he left it. Relief washed over him, but only for a moment, because several enforcement drones were positioned near the far side of the dock. They hadn't noticed Evan or the creature yet, but they were scanning the area. The ship doors were still closed. If he tried to open them now, the drones would detect the movement instantly. The creature looked at him, waiting for his decision. Evan swallowed hard. "We need a distraction," he whispered. He searched quickly through his pack and found a small tool, a heat igniter used for welding. It wasn't much, but it could create a sudden spark of bright light. He adjusted it and aimed it toward a pile of metal crates far away from the ship. He pressed the switch. A quick burst of light flashed, bouncing off the metal walls. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to pull the drone's attention. They turned and moved toward the crates. "Now," Evan whispered. He and the creature moved quickly, but quietly toward the ship. Evan punched in the code on the door panel. The door slid open smoothly. For 1 second, everything felt like it might actually work, but then a drone scanning behind them paused and turned its sensor. It detected motion. It detected life. It sent out a sharp alert signal. Evan felt panic rise in his chest. The creature stepped onto the ship, but the alert sound grew louder. He pressed the door control fast. Before the doors fully closed, the creature acted. It lifted its arm, and a rippling energy shimmered around it, almost like heat waves. For a moment, the air behind them twisted like space itself, folded around the drone's sensors. The machine froze, confused, unable to read the life signs anymore. The doors sealed shut. The ship lifted off, just as the drones rushed toward the dock. Inside the ship, Evan stared at the creature, breathless. What did you just do?" The creature lowered its head slightly, as if gathering strength. Then, in a soft, low voice, it spoke one more word: protect. The meaning hit Evan hard. The creature had used the little strength it had left to hide them both, to save them. It wasn't just surviving anymore. It was choosing to help him too. Evan sat beside it, steadying his breath. "We'll get out of here," he murmured. "I promise." As the ship sped away from the outpost, the stars outside the window stretched into long lines. Behind them, the drones were already searching for their signal. But the creature's strange power seemed to disrupt the trackers. It was the first time Evan truly understood what the creature was capable of. Something rare, something ancient, something the Council clearly feared. And for the first time, he realized something even bigger. Saving this creature wasn't just an act of kindness. It might change everything. When the truth about the creature finally came out, nothing in the galaxy felt the same for Evan. He had never thought of himself as someone important. He was just a quiet salvager who traveled alone and minded his own business. But after everything he had seen, after helping the old creature recover, after surviving the Council's drones, after uncovering the files that showed years of neglect, he realized something. Once you know the truth, it becomes impossible to stay silent. The creature was resting in a safe corner of the ship as Evan sent the recordings out. He watched the small screen in front of him, his fingers trembling slightly. All he had to do was press one button. One single button that would send proof of the Council's decisions to thousands of independent networks, free stations, and open communication hubs. He took a long breath. "This is it," he whispered to himself. The creature opened its eyes. They looked calmer now, brighter, almost peaceful. Though it could not speak much, there was a quiet understanding in its gaze. Like it knew exactly what Evan was doing. Evan pressed the button. A soft beep echoed in the cabin, and little green lights began to blink on the screen. The files were being sent slowly, but steadily across channels the Council could not easily control. Evan felt his heart pounding in his ears. He didn't know what kind of storm he had started. He didn't know if anyone would believe him. But at least the truth was free now. No creature deserved to be forgotten and left to fade away. Minutes felt like hours as Evan sat there, staring at the blinking lights. The ship hummed softly. The creature lay nearby, breathing steadily, its large chest rising and falling in a calm rhythm. Evan couldn't help but smile a bit. Just days ago, this being had looked half dead, abandoned, and helpless. Now it seemed almost strong again, still old, still tired, but filled with a strange dignity. "Don't worry," Evan said softly. "They won't take you again. Not now." The creature blinked slowly, and even though it didn't speak, Evan felt like it understood every word. After a while, the transmission finished. A small message popped up, delivered to 184 networks. Evan let out a long breath and leaned back in his seat. The galaxy was huge, bigger than anything one person could imagine. But messages moved fast. People talked. And injustice had a way of being noticed, even if it took time. Within a few hours, the first responses came in. Not from officials, not from powerful leaders, no. They came from regular people. Independent traders, explorers, refugees from damaged worlds. Small communities living on moons and asteroids. People who knew what it felt like to be ignored by the Council. Messages appeared on Evan's screen. Is this real? How could they do this to a living being? We need answers. Some sent angry responses. Others sent messages full of sadness. A few even shared their own stories of creatures or groups abandoned by the Council long ago. Evan read as many as he could, his chest tightening with every message. He hadn't expected such a response. He thought maybe a few people would care. But it felt like half the galaxy had been waiting for someone to speak first. The creature lifted its head and watched the screen. Evan turned to it and said, "People are listening. They want to help." The creature made a low rumbling noise, soft and warm, almost like a quiet thank you. But even with all the support, Evan knew the council wouldn't stay still. They didn't like being exposed. They especially didn't like when ordinary people challenged their decisions. He expected trouble, but for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel afraid. Shortly after the first wave of messages, a call came through from a small neutral station. A calm voice spoke through the speakers. "We saw your broadcast. Bring the creature here. We want to offer shelter." Evan glanced at the creature. Its eyes softened, as if relieved. He nodded and accepted the call. The flight to the station took several hours. During the journey, Evan talked to the creature the same way he had on the first day, even if he wasn't sure how much it understood. He told it stories of different planets he had visited, strange storms he'd flown through, and the time he almost crashed into a floating ice canyon because he misread a scanner. The creature listened patiently, blinking at him now and then not at one point. The creature lifted its long arm and gently touched the side of the ship, almost like it was remembering something. Evan leaned closer. "Were you part of something big once?" He asked softly. "Did you protect people?" The creature closed its eyes in a slow, peaceful way. Evan felt a small shiver down his spine. He didn't need spoken words to understand. This creature wasn't just an experiment, not just a forgotten beast. Thought it had been a guardian once. Something noble. Something important. Maybe that was why the council had wanted it gone. The ship finally arrived at the neutral station, a small but bright-looking place built inside the side of an asteroid. When Evan landed, he was surprised to see how many people were waiting. Not soldiers, not officials, just normal folks, engineers, merchants, technicians, older people, and even children. They stood silently as the ramp of the ship lowered. Evan guided the creature out slowly, making sure it didn't get overwhelmed. People watched with wide eyes, but not with fear, more with curiosity and a strange kind of respect. One older technician stepped forward. "We heard about what happened," he said, looking at the creature with soft eyes. "No being should be treated like that." Evan nodded, feeling a weight lift from his chest. For the first time, he realized he wasn't alone in this. The station workers prepared a safe, quiet room filled with warm lights and soft materials so the creature could rest. Evan stayed by its side, watching as it settled down in the gentlest environment it had seen in decades. It breathed deeply, almost like it could finally relax. Later that night, Evan sat in a small common area with a cup of warm tea. A few station workers sat with him, asking questions and sharing their thoughts. One of them, a tall person with calm eyes, said, "You know, this might be the start of something bigger. People are tired of decisions made behind closed doors." Evan looked down at his cup. "I just did what felt right." "And sometimes," the worker replied, "that's all it takes to start change." Over the next few days, the creature grew stronger. Slowly, carefully, but noticeably. It even managed to stand on its own for short moments. When it did, everyone nearby went silent. Its presence filled the room, not in a frightening way, but in an ancient, noble way. Like a living memory from a time when the galaxy was different, Evan began to understand why the creature had been valued long ago. There was something powerful and wise in it, even in its old age. And now, thanks to a simple act of kindness, it had a second chance to exist. One evening, Evan sat next to it, resting his hand gently on the floor. "I don't know what comes next," he admitted softly, "but whatever it is, we'll face it together." The creature lowered its head slightly, its warm eyes watching him with a softness that didn't need translation. In the days that followed, more messages came from across the galaxy. People demanded answers from the Council. Some wanted justice. Others wanted reform. And a growing number wanted the creature species to be recognized again, not as forgotten beasts, but as beings with history, value, and dignity. Evan never expected to be part of any of this. He never wanted fame or attention. But now, wherever he went, people greeted him with appreciation. Not because they saw him as a hero, but because they saw him as someone who listened to a suffering being when nobody else did. Eventually, Evan prepared to travel again. Not to run, but to continue helping bring the truth forward. The creature, now stronger, moved beside him as if ready for the journey. Together, they stepped onto Evan's ship again, not as a salvager and a dying creature, but as partners, as survivors, as symbols of something the galaxy had almost lost: compassion. When the ship lifted off, Evan looked through the window at the stars stretching across the darkness. For the first time, the universe didn't feel empty. It felt full of people waking up, full of conversations starting, full of possibilities. He turned to the creature and smiled. Ready for whatever comes next? The creature let out a gentle rumble, like a small echo of ancient strength returning. And together, they flew into a future neither of them had expected, but both were ready to face side by side.